Due to unforeseen circumstances, Manic Mondays have been relocated to all days. Is this too slutty? That'll get me subscribers. We gotta talk about some statistics, okay? Because your girl is annoyed. Okay, so first of all, hi, hello, how are you? Happy, 14th day of Vlogmas. I cannot believe that I've made it this far. Yada yada, we've done the whole bit where I'm shocked that I've made it this far. Now we gotta talk about some statistics. Why is someone racing down the street? Like, what is wrong with these people? So for those of you who don't know, as part of my business class, right, I have to take statistics. So that means your girl is taking a math class. And if you know nothing else about me, you should know that, like, math has never been a subject I've felt particularly strong in. Like, that's just tea. I have never felt strong in math. I've never felt smart in math. And I think part of the reason is just because, like, I feel like I've had a lot of, like, math teachers who were not always the most supportive. Like, I remember being in grade school and having a math teacher who was, like, just such a fucking asshole. And, like, yelled at people religiously, which I guess makes sense because it was Catholic school. But she was so fucking strict, and, like, so many people did not like her. And, you know, I mean, this is, you know, a teacher in, like, a middle school and, like, elementary school. Like, you cannot be doing that shit. I'm sorry. Like, you know, certain people maybe just aren't, you know, cut out to be teachers, whatever, fine. Anyway, so, you know, I've always had kind of this thing where I've never felt particularly smart, especially about math, right? I've never felt particularly smart about math. When I learned that one of the classes I was going to have to take for my master's program was a statistics class, I was like, fuck, girl, let's get this over with as soon as possible because math is not my strong suit. I do not like math. So, like, I want to get this over with. But I have actually learned quite a bit, and it's not like a statistics class in that respect. It's more like a class to really get me to learn, like, Excel and shit like that, which has been great, and I've learned a lot, so I'm very, like, glad that I took the class now, and I feel like I'm doing well in the class, and that's a new feeling for me, and feeling like, hey, maybe I actually am smart. That's a new feeling for me too, especially when it comes to school, because, like, the last time I was in school, I guess in art school, it wasn't like so much whether or not you're smart or dumb. It was more like whether or not someone thinks you're objectively good at art, which, you know, as the Boulet brothers say every single episode of their show, art is subjective. So, like, you know, it's very hard to say whether or not someone is, quote unquote, good at art, right? Like, I think when you're in an art school, there is an expectation that you have to meet the school where they're at, and you have to meet them at, like, what they expect you to be doing. And so, you know, we can have a conversation about whether or not someone is good or bad at art based on the objective realities of the school program you're in, right? Like, I was expected by certain teachers to, you know, we had classes where it was like, not even like like a still life drawing class. And drawing has never been what I would consider to be my artistic medium. Like, graphic design, I think I'm pretty good at. You know, typography is something I love. Print design, package design, a little bit, are things that I love. Drawing is not something that I feel particularly skilled in. To have a teacher who very admittedly traces everything they draw, like, that is something they admitted to doing, and, like, with no shame, to have them telling me your drawing is not very good is irritating, to say the least, right? Like, I don't know who you are to critique me when you're not even really drawing the things that you draw, but, like, go off, whatever, fine. Like, that's neither here nor there. But what I'm saying is, like, it's a new feeling to feel like I'm actually smart at something and good at something, and I'm getting these good grades. That is a new feeling for me. But what it's also taught me is like, how to understand statistics, how to look at statistics, how to look at graphs and charts and understand information and kind of understand like how things really are, basically. And so one of the things I was thinking about, and I was thinking about it, I've been thinking about this for a while now. I think we have to have a serious conversation about the fact that trans people make up a very small minority of the people in this country, right? According to a CNN article that I found this year that was published back in February, there was a 2022 survey done which found that about 92,000 people in America alone would consider themselves some flavor of transgender. They did include non-binary folks. I don't know if the survey included intersex folks. I would hope so. But let's assume, and I kind of wanted to do like kind of a thought experiment, right? Let's assume for a second that there is maybe a 5% margin of error, right? I think usually in statistics, you'll find that 5% is a pretty common rounding error. You can either round up or round down. But let's assume for a second it's more along the lines of 138,000, just in America, right? Now, for reference, the total population of America as of like the most recent survey, which was like 2022, I believe, the total population is 345 million. So even if the trans population in America is actually 138,000, which is debatable, it's kind of a round number. There's no real way to quantify this. It's based on who is actually, responding to this questionnaire, who isn't afraid that it's going to be used against them, so maybe isn't actually answering honestly or isn't answering it at all. So I think that's why it's fair to give a rounding error of 5% greater than versus 5% less than. But even still, even with a 5% greater than the 92,000 answered, what you're looking at is 0.0004% of the American population who is trans in any configuration. That is less than half of a percent. That's less than 1/4%. And yet, all that anyone can talk about in the news, all that anyone can talk about in politics is trans people and this supposed danger we pose. And I find it very interesting that this is the case when the likelihood that you or anyone actually is going to meet someone who is trans, who is going to know someone who is trans, is like astronomical at this point. To say less than 1/4% of the total American population, like there are more people in Jackson, Mississippi than there are people who are trans in the entire country. Like, you have to understand, there are more people in the New York and LA area than there are total trans people in the entire country. And yet, the way we're discussed, you would think we were the largest group of people in the world. And like, we're not even the largest group of people in any given area. And so it's wild to me the way people pass these fear-mongering laws and act as though we are some huge, huge threat that you have to watch out for and look out for because we could be lurking anywhere. And it's like, girl, the chances of you running into a trans person are almost nil. The chances of you even recognizing if you did run into a trans person are even less than nil. Not every trans person dresses like me with a fucking walking outfit and, look that says, hey, I'm trans. Because not all of us want to do that. A lot of us don't want people to know. A lot of us don't want anyone to have any idea because it's nobody's fucking business. But it's astounding to me when you actually look at the math, you look at the numbers, and you say, hey, actually, the percentage is really fucking small. The number of actual trans people in America. And mind you, I mean, even if you said it was 1% of the population of Americans, which again, that is still such a minuscule number. Yeah, you'd be looking at like 1 million people, but compared to everyone, I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. So the population of trans people is very fucking small. And yet people act as though we're just everyone secretly. You know what's strange to me and kind of wild and vile and everything else is that CNN article had the nerve to say that 92,000 was unprecedented, as if somehow that's like a big number. Like, it's really not in the grand scheme of things. It's actually a very, very small number. And again, I still think there is a very good chance that there are people who aren't answering the question because they're concerned it could get out. You know, there's so many different factors, right? But I mean, even if you assume that that's, you know, the correct answer, and that's a big supposition, and I think they said of that 92,000, I think they said like 85,000 were 18 and older, and I think the youngest they found was like maybe 16. So like, that's what, I mean, doing a little bit of math, that's like what, 20,000 young people, if even, in the entire country. So again, the chances of, you know, your brat running into a trans person and having to compete against them in a sport, and by the way, 20,000 in the whole country does not mean that's the amount that would even want to play sports. So like, let's start there. But there's all of these bans based on theoretical trans people. And then actual trans people have to be visible and be vocal and talk about their transition because people have decided that these people exist in your state and in your area, when chances are they probably fucking don't. And in a way, by trying to make them invisible and by trying to not talk about them, you have now elevated people who you otherwise would not have heard about into like celebrity status. You know, it's very much, what is it, the Barbara Streisand effect, where it's like you're trying to make something less visible, and in doing that you actually draw more attention to it. Like, that's literally what's happening. All of these laws and all of these like efforts to try and make trans people disappear is only making us more visible. It's only adding to how much we're seen and known. And it's just so funny because it's like I don't know if they realize it, but it's like the more you try and make something hidden and the more you try and make it something that nobody sees and knows about, the more people want to know about it. I think most people hadn't even heard about trans people, because why is it suddenly in 2024 everyone is obsessed with talking about us when most people didn't know what a trans person was like 2 years ago? And I almost liked it better when people didn't know, because it's made people so fucking annoying about us. And it's like, I don't get it. I don't get why it's such a small group of people, and yet so many people have so many opinions that I have to hear about. That's the thing. It's not like people can just be normal about it. Like, I have to constantly hear about everyone else's opinion about me. Can you imagine how exhausting that is? When you constantly have to hear people's opinions about you? People you don't even fucking know get to have an opinion about you. And granted, you know, at least on YouTube, like, I'm a semi-public figure. I can at least say I'm putting myself out there, so I understand that people are going to give their opinion about me. Whether or not I care about their opinion, and whether or not, you know, their opinion means anything is something to be argued. However, when you are a public figure, when you are out there and putting yourself out there and talking online, as I do, I can understand that people will have an opinion on me. Whether or not, you know, that's warranted, whatever, I understand it. But if I'm a stranger on the street, or if someone else is a stranger on the street, why do you need to have an opinion on, you know, what they're doing and what their life is? You know what I mean? That's insane to me. That is wild behavior that you need to be checked out for. Because why do you give a shit what other people are doing with their lives? That's obsessive to the point of, like, madness. You don't need to know what my life is. No one is, you know, asking you to join in. I know people act like, you know, asking you to respect someone's pronouns is asking you to join in. But, like, no, they're really not. They're just asking you to be respectful. Like, I'm not going around calling every Republican who pisses me off she, her. So, like, if I can, and I, you know, people always point this out, and I think it's worth repeating. Like, if you misgender a dog, most people will be like, oh no, that's, you know, my dog gets asked, oh, how old is she all the time? Or what is she? He's a Bichon. And people are always like, oh, what kind of dog is that? Is that a, you know, fucking poodle? No, it's a Bichon. People, oh, sorry, you know, he's a boy, you know, whatever, you say that. And people are like, oh, sorry, not a big deal, because it's a dog. So when you misgender a dog, people are like, oh, okay, sorry, you know, I misspoke. And it's not a thing that people make a big deal out of it. So why is it that if you misgender someone and they say, oh, sorry, I'm, you know, a girl, I'm a guy, whatever, you know, why is that a big deal? Why is that something that people act like they're being so harassed, being expected to respect someone's gender? You can do it for a fucking dog. Why can't you do it for a person? Why is that less reasonable to you? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why people act like it's such a imposition on their free speech. Like, I'm not asking you, you know, to do anything all that complicated. It's just asking you to recognize someone's humanity, which I guess for some people is a complicated ask, but it shouldn't be. Like, I don't know. It just seems very simple to me. And again, like I said, considering how small in the population trans people are, it's just astounding that it's so much of the news cycle. So much of the news cycle. So much of this election was about trans people. And then after the election, when the Democrats lost, even though elected official or official that was going to be elected talked about trans issues, every fucking Democrat came out of the woodwork to talk about how, well, we were too woke and we talked about trans people too much and that's why we lost. And it's like, what campaign were you watching? Like, I guess because you didn't actively denounce trans people, that's what made you wrong, and like maybe you should have done that. Like, and if that's the takeaway that you came away from this election, you need help and to get out of politics because you don't know how to read the room. But like, whatever, you know, and I'm just, you know, it's just, I need 2025 to be a better year. That's what I need, because they're coming to take me away. I'm doing fine, but like, it's irritating. You know what I mean? It's irritating to constantly have people discussing your life and your existence and other people's lives that have nothing to do with them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why. I just feel as though people should mind their own fucking business. And I don't feel like that's you know, that used to be not a controversial statement. I feel like saying people should mind their own goddamn business used to be a very non-controversial statement. There was a time when saying like, hey, you should mind your own fucking business was like just an obvious statement. And like, even people in our own community can't mind their own fucking business about trans people. That's what gets me. There are some people within our own community who cannot even mind their own business about this. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Manic Mondays have been relocated to all days. I think my final thoughts at this point are just leave trans people alone. Like, that's it. It's that simple, Mary. Like, just leave us alone. Stop talking about us all the goddamn time. And I'm hoping maybe 45 and 47 will be bored enough and busy enough with other bullshit that he will forget we exist. Because it's amazing to me how much of, like, every time you hear about something, it's like, on day one, he's going to do this. On day one, he's going to do, like, every plan he has is, like, on day one. Which is hilarious to me because I'm like, there's only so much you can do in a single day. Like, you need to calm down. But whatever, that's not for me. We're not going to talk about this anymore because I want to have a good holiday season. You know what I mean? If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what your thoughts are about the media cycle. Tell me, actually, you know what? Instead of that, tell me a positive thing that's going on for you right now. Tell me what your plans are for 2025, what your goals are, what you want to accomplish that you've never done before. Just something good that you want to look forward to, because I think we need that more than ever. We need less thinking about bad shit in the future and more thinking about good shit in the future. We need positivity.